What I really love about my job is that I have an opportunity to work for something that's bigger than myself. I have an opportunity to work for something that is a larger public good.
We're here today in Grand Teton National Park with Superintendent Chip Jenkins, who has been in his role here since the end of 2020. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Essentially January 2021.
Okay, great. Yeah. So thank you for sharing your time with me today and letting me do this interview.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah. Well, I first just wanted to ask about how brutal of a winter it's been, and it's mid-March. Spring should be coming up, but we're in Wyoming, so we probably won't see the grass until June. And so I just wanted to touch on that first. Have there been any weather-related obstacles that you all have dealt with in the last few months, or has visitation really just slowed down more than usual and operations slowed down because of that?
Yeah, it's been a weather, quite the weather winter, and I think that it depends on your perspective. On the one hand, it's been a banner ski year. And people have been out and enjoying, whether it's skiing deep in the backcountry or cross-country skiing. But yep, we've had, just like everybody in Wyoming, we've had a variety of, consequences from the weather. We've had more than our usual number of road closures and weather-related events. But actually, it's been a pretty good winter for us. So and our crew's pretty adaptable.
Mm-hmm. Good. And so now, for those who don't work within the Park Service or who haven't ever met a superintendent of a national park, can you just tell us what it's like to actually be the superintendent of the park? I think when you spoke to the class of 2023 in August, I believe, of this year, you told them it was sort of like being the mayor of a town. So maybe you can just touch on what it's like to be the superintendent and what your day-to-day looks like.
Sure. Grand Teton National Park, it is like a municipality. It is like a town, or it's like a county. And by that I mean we're responsible for everything within the boundary of the park. So that is, I have 26, 27 law enforcement rangers. We run 3 ambulances. We have 2 structural fire brigades. We run an interagency dispatch center. We will have, during the summer months, we'll have 35 to 40 paid rangers who are out on the ground, whose job it is to be able to provide information and orientation to people. The reason that you're able to get to the Jackson Hole Airport in the winter is because our roads crew are running snowplows and rotaries in order to keep Highway 89 and the other roads open. And it's not just road maintenance. We're responsible for construction and maintenance. We maintain over 200 housing units that house over 300 employees. We have our own daycare. We have a complement, of ologists. So whether it's bear biologist or ungulate biologist or water ecologists or vegetation ecologists that are responsible for leading the stewardship and science of the natural and cultural resources. And then, of course, we have all of the back of house stuff. So we need to maintain IT systems, radio repeaters, numerous computer systems, to social media and websites, finance department, human resources, purchasing, auto shops, where we repair our fleet of vehicles and heavy equipment. So a full range of welcoming millions of people to come here, as well as caring for the natural and human-built infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. And so as far as your day-to-day goes, that's a lot of people and a lot of different of areas of the park, and so you must not be managing all of those groups at once.
Right.
What, as far as your responsibilities go, what are the top priorities for you?
Right. Well, we have we have a senior leadership team, comprised of 5 division chiefs with a chief of staff, deputy superintendent, and myself. And I think at the core of it, of what my job is is to understand what our frontline employees and what our supervisors need in order to be successful, and then work to try to provide that for them. So thinking about as a leader, what is it that we need or what we need to provide to our folks. One of the things that we need to do is to recognize that we work on different scales. We work on different time scales. We work on different scope scales. So for example, our emergency services personnel, our law enforcement rangers, our park medics, they literally make split-second decisions that can be life or death about rendering aid. And we need to make sure that we are providing them, that we are supporting them with the tools, with the systems, with the training in order to be able to work on those scales. At the same time, in the same day, we'll be working with planners and facility management maintenance folks as we are planning a new visitor center or planning new housing, working on a parking lot. By definition, those things will be on the landscape for 50, 70 years. So that is an entirely different sense of scale, time scale and scope scale. And we need to be adaptable to be able to move back and forth and be able to work on those scales. I think one of the ways that I think about this is I work on this fiscal year, I work on next fiscal year, I work on a rolling 5-year plan, and then we work on a longer time scale. We are, by definition, in the Park Service, the in perpetuity business, so we're thinking 10, 15, 50 years out into the future. And developing the skills and being comfortable in terms of being able to work at multiple scales simultaneously, while also at the same time having the ability to communicate and help inform and educate and help all of our employees understand that different parts of the organization are working at different scales at the same time, and that's not a problem, but that's actually a condition that we work in, and it's appropriate, and that we should respect and support that with each other.
Mm-hmm. And so with those different multiple teams and in different areas, like you described, from park rangers to waste management systems, like there's so many different groups, how have you been able to maintain your leadership approach as your responsibilities and demands on your time have grown? Right.
So I think, I think it's important for people to understand, at least for me, as I'm a work in progress, right? So how I show up as a leader is different now than when I was 30, 40, or 50 years old, right? I've learned over time, and I've adapted and changed based upon what I've learned. Again, what I'd say is that what I am focused on is trying to understand what people need to be successful. And then what I need to do is I need to take that and I need to line that up with what are two really important things. What's our organization's mission and what's our organization's value? And, what people say they may need, if that aligns with our mission and it aligns with our values, and aligns with our strategic priorities, then I work to try to provide those. If what people say that they need, then I try to work with them to either adjust what it is that they think that they need, or I need to say no. And so I'll give an example. Right? Is our mission here is to preserve and protect unimpaired this place, so that people today and future generations can come and enjoy what is here, the wildlife, the scenery, the opportunities for recreation. By way of example is that if we have an employee who may behave in a way that is gets work done, but creates a hostile workplace, that may align with our mission because they get work done, but it doesn't align with our values. not the way that's not aligned with how we want to do our work. So then what my job is to be able to help try to set up the situation to be able to coach and mentor people to come into alignment with deciding with our values, or for them to recognize that this is not the place that they may need to be working, right? And so people who work here have many different needs, right? Some people, it's based upon compensation. Some places, it's based upon internal reward system. Some it's the needs that we have are around funding or equipment or training. And so there's kind of this constant work with our leadership team in terms of trying to understand what it is that folks need, and do they align with our mission and our values, and then trying to calibrate that. So, yeah.
And I know I'm sort of switching gears back and forth here, but you got a little emotional when I asked you about what you love about your job, and I think that's incredible to see from someone who's in a position of leadership and at a park like this. And so can you just tell us about your journey, your history getting here? I think you maybe have been the superintendent for a couple other parks, and so maybe your journey through the national park system, because it sounds like you really do love it. It wasn't just like, it didn't just happen and you just sort of fell in. Maybe you did, yeah.
I think there was not a roadmap, and in many respects I feel like it did just happen, and that I have been incredibly blessed and fortunate. In college, my senior year, I was able to get a seasonal ranger job at North Cascades National Park. Started that, worked seasonally for a couple of years. Worked in longer term temporary jobs with the Park Service main planning and design office in Denver, Colorado, where I had gone on permanently as a secretary, and then was able to go back out to a parks, working primarily in the natural resources fields, Santa Monica Mountains and Black Canyon of the Gunnison. And then I got a big break, which is I had an opportunity to work as a special assistant for a director of the National Park Service in DC, where I wound up being for a year. After that, I went to Yosemite National Park, where I was worked as a management assistant and chief of strategic planning for the park, and was there for a number of years, 8 years, and I just learned a lot because it was a super complex operation there. And then my first superintendency from there was Lewis and Clark National Park, and right at where the Columbia River runs into the Pacific Ocean on the border of Oregon and Washington, and superintendent of North Cascades National Park, deputy regional director, where I was responsible for all the National Park Service units in the Pacific Northwest. A year as the acting superintendent in Yosemite, superintendent at Mount Rainier previously, and now I'm here at Grand Teton. So, yeah, close to 35 years. More than half of that time has been spent in a superintendent job. So,
what do you love about your job?
Well, look out the window. The spectacular view of the Tetons from my office here is what I really love about my job is that I have an opportunity to work for something that's bigger than myself. I have an opportunity to work for something that is a larger public good. That really feeds my internal reward system. You can see it kind of gets it means a lot to me. Yeah.
And since you are relatively new to Wyoming, what have you found to be unique about working in Wyoming in both inspiring and challenging ways?
Yeah, I think, great saying in this state, right? Wyoming is a small town with really long streets. And it is, with the small population that is here, it is really true. People know each other. I mean, folks are interconnected in so many different ways, whether it's, work or or family, or through schools or through civic organizations. And so there is this connection all across the state that people have, which is really really fun and really really interesting. It's awe-inspiring in terms of the landscape. Just the whether it's the mountains or the rivers or just the magnificent wildlife that is all of which is so readily accessible. I think the civic-mindedness, the way that average citizens and that leaders come together to be able to try to help each other out in communities around opportunities and problems is really inspiring. All of that is really amazing, and I think different than many other places that I've lived around the country. One thing that is just kind of interesting is because it's like a small town, is there's no anonymity, and I think it's something that I really keep in mind is I happen to wear the title of Superintendent of Grand Teton, and because of the iconic nature of this place, that title carries weight and significant and gravitas, and there are people who it is easy to confuse kind of the attention that one may get because of the title with the attention that one may get because of who they are as a person. And so I think it's I'm just aware of that. There's an important leadership role that I play. There's also a really important kind of symbolic role.
Public, yeah.
That I need to serve, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just aware of kind of what's the symbolism and what's the real person. So right.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's sort of that anonymity is sort of a double-edged sword, because your example of the inspiring and both the challenging are sort of similar in that Wyoming is like a small town that you kind of you can't hide from that from your title, but on the other side of the sword, it's like you have to be kind. I mean, I truly think people in Wyoming are just kind people.
Yeah.
But I think if there were more people here and it was easier to hide, you don't have to be so nice to everyone, or you don't have to be so civil with everyone. But when you're living in a place where there are so few people, it's like that person could be giving the person who you're flipping off in the car could be giving you a bank loan next week, and so you just never know when you're going to run into someone.
Here, right? It's a pleasure, but it is rare that I go to the grocery store, or rare that you go to the hardware store, or rare that you go out to eat, that you don't run into somebody who or knows you, right? And I can tell being superintendent at Yosemite, being superintendent at Mount Rainier, like walking around town, nobody has any idea what your title is, right? And so and so it just there is you're just aware in terms of that your neighbors are that our lives are intertwined,
right?
Right.
Yeah. And for a normal citizen like myself, for example, I love that. I love being able to go to the grocery store or the gym or wherever and see people I know. On my bad days, it's not so fun. Sometimes I just want to go and don't want to talk to anyone. But with a position like yours, I'm sure it must be difficult sometimes. People may be wanting to always talk about the park or bring up issues, and
it is not unusual to be standing in the vegetable section and having a conversation about something that people care about. Now again, it's also a blessing, because what's what's really cool is people really care, right? It's this place, right, has a deep spiritual meaning to people. It's really important to people, and so they want me to know that, and so so it's so you wind up it's not unusual having conversations about what's going on when you're out and about town, and it comes with the territory. It's just like that's part of the again, it goes back to your other question about is leadership lonely. It's like you're making it's a choice you make in terms of having the really once in a lifetime opportunity, right? So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And then bringing it back to what you said about people in Wyoming and leadership and, people really standing up and sort of working together in all corners of the state. So you have an employee, Jeremy Barnum, who is your chief of staff in the current Leadership Wyoming class. And so from the outside, what benefits do you see of encouraging a staff member to be a part of the Leadership Wyoming program?
Leadership Wyoming is an amazing opportunity for people in the state. It is an opportunity to develop professional networks. It is an opportunity to grow as a leader and as a human being and as an active citizen in the state. It's an opportunity to get really a clearer understanding of the economic drivers, of the social drivers, of the values of the political institutions, of the other social institutions that help make this place operate. And that's all done in a context where you develop personal relationships with people from different communities and different sectors that you may not otherwise come in contact with. And from what I see is that just as an individual citizen of the state, that helps you be more knowledgeable and more engaged. As an employee, it helps you be more productive as an employee. As a leader, it helps you step up into taking on more authority and responsibility to lend a hand. Yeah.
That's good. I think we should just transcribe that onto our website. That's a great description.
Sure.
And then
I got it all from Jeremy. Jeremy routinely, provides updates and talks quite passionately and quite eloquently about what this has meant to him and what he is getting out of it. So,
that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And then one just final question, I guess, what do you see as the future of, what are your hopes and dreams for the future of Grand Teton National Park? Especially, I think, things have changed in the last few years with the pandemic and things got busy and maybe they've come back to normal now, I'm not sure. But, what are your hopes and dreams for the park?
The hopes and dreams are that whoever is listening to this, that your kids are able to come back here and see and experience what you are able to see and experience. That really is what we're about. This place speaks for itself, and the mission of our organization, all of the work that we are putting into this, is to be able to welcome and support millions of people to be able to come here. And to be able to come here, though, to be able to see thriving and sustainable elk populations and pronghorn and grizzly bears and bald eagles, and to be able to fish and catch a trout on the wild and scenic Snake River, and to be able to take a hike and maybe climb a peak, and to do that in the context of that 50 years from now, 75 years from now, your kids will be able to come and do the same thing. And if we're able to achieve that, then we're being wildly successful.
We want to thank Superintendent Chip Jenkins for his time and for being a part of the Leading Wyoming podcast.